The skies were broken with fire and smoke. The war between alien clans had left the world in ruins. Cities burned, fields turned black, and broken machines covered the land like bones. Ethan, a human mechanic, walked carefully across the battlefield. His boots crunched over twisted metal and fallen weapons. He had no reason to be here except for survival. He searched for scraps, anything he could sell, fix, or trade for food. Humans were not part of this war, but they always suffered in its shadow. The air was heavy with ash. Each breath felt like swallowing dust. Ethan wiped his face with a torn cloth. His eyes were sharp, scanning every corner. He had learned long ago that one careless step could mean death, mines, traps, or worse, hungry survivors waiting to strike. Then he heard it, a sound that froze him in place. It was not the clash of metal or the echo of war machines. It was softer, broken, like a cry of pain. His heart raced. He turned his head and followed the sound. His instincts told him to walk away, to survive. But something in that cry felt alive, desperate. He moved through the ruins, stepping over broken walls and shattered glass. The sound grew louder. It was not one voice, it was two. Ethan gripped the handle of his wrench, the only weapon he had. He pushed aside a piece of fallen stone and stopped. Before him lay two massive creatures. Their scales were dull, covered with blood and dirt, chains wrapped around their legs and wings. Their bodies trembled with weakness, but their eyes still burned with fire. Alien dragons, creatures of legend, feared across galaxies, now lying helpless in the dirt. Ethan's breath caught. He heard stories of these dragons, how they could burn fleets with a single roar. Entire armies feared them, and yet here they were broken, wounded, abandoned. The dragons noticed him. Their eyes locked on his small human form. A growl rumbled from one of them, low and weak but still filled with danger. Ethan froze. Sweat rolled down his neck. He could run now, leave them to die. That would be the smart choice. But he did not move. Instead, he whispered, almost to himself, "You're just like us, aren't you?" His voice shook, but his eyes softened. Left behind when no one needs you. One of the dragons tried to lift its head but collapsed again. The sound that escaped its throat was not a growl this time. It was pain, pure and sharp. Ethan stepped closer. His hands trembled. Every part of his body screamed at him to run. But he bent down instead, examining the chains. They were forged with alien steel, heavy and cruel. He touched the wounds near the metal. The dragon flinched but did not strike. Instead, its burning eyes seemed to watch him, curious. Ethan pulled his pack from his shoulder and searched for tools. He carried small cutters, patches, and healing gel stolen from battlefields. Enough to fix broken machines, maybe enough to help a dying creature. "Easy," he whispered, as if the dragons could understand. His hands worked carefully. Every time the chains clinked, the dragons shifted nervously, but they did not attack. Maybe they were too weak, or maybe they sensed his intent as he worked. Ethan kept glancing at the skies. Shadows moved above the smoke. War machines still roamed the land. If soldiers found him here, with two wounded dragons, they would kill him instantly, both for treason and for mercy. But he could not stop. His heart refused to abandon them. Hours seemed to pass in minutes. Ethan managed to loosen one chain. The dragon groaned softly, almost like a sigh of relief. The second one tried to move closer to him, as if asking for help. He realized then that they were not monsters. They were survivors, just like him. But then the ground shook. Distant laughter echoed through the ruins. Ethan froze. He knew that sound. Mercenaries, scavengers who hunted the weak. They would not spare him, and if they saw the dragons, they would surely finish them. His pulse thundered in his ears. He looked at the dragons, still bound and bleeding. He looked at the path he came from, still open for escape. This was the moment of choice. Run and live another day, or stay and risk everything for two dying beasts. Ethan gritted his teeth. His fingers tightened around his wrench. He whispered, "If no one else will save you, then I will." the dragons glowing. Eyes followed him as he stood between them and the approaching shadows. Smoke curled in the wind. The broken skies above seemed to wait for the answer of a single human heart. Asterisk, a dangerous choice. The ruins were silent except for the faint breathing of the dragons. Their bodies rose and fell slowly, each breath heavy. Like thunder trapped under their skin, Ethan knelt beside them, sweat dripping from his forehead. His hands were shaking. Not from fear alone, but from the weight of the decision before him. He could walk away. No one would know. No one would blame him. Humans had no duty to save alien beasts, especially not the most feared creatures in the galaxy. He could slip back into the smoke and pretend he had seen nothing. That was the smart path, the safe path. But then one of the dragons opened its eye again. The golden glow inside it flickered weakly, like a dying fire. It did not look at him with hatred this time. It looked at him with something else, something Ethan had seen once before. On the battlefield of humans, it was the look of a soldier abandoned by his own. Left to die alone. His chest tightened. Memory struck him like lightning. He remembered the day his own unit was left behind during the war. He had crawled out of the ashes alone. He knew what it felt like to be unwanted, to be discarded like broken scrap. He clenched his wrench tighter. His voice was low, almost a whisper. "No, I won't leave you." The dragons stirred at his words. As if their ears caught the sound, one let out a low rumble that shook the ground. Not a growl, but something closer to a plea. Ethan felt his fear melt, replaced by something dangerous: determination. He reached into his pack, pulling out scraps of metal tools, cutters, and a small torch. His hands moved quickly. He attacked the first chain. Sparks flying in the night, the metal hissed under the heat. His heart pounded. If mercenaries returned now, he would be trapped. A fool caught in the act of saving monsters. The dragon's head shifted closer. Its hot breath washed over him. Ethan almost dropped the cutter. "Easy," he whispered. "I'm not your enemy." The dragon blinked slowly, like it understood. Then it lowered its head back into the dirt, allowing him to continue. Every strike on the chain echoed in the ruins, too loud, too dangerous. Ethan worked faster. Sweat ran into his eyes. He wiped it with the back of his arm and pushed harder. Finally, with a sharp crack, one of the chains snapped free. The dragon let out a sound that shook the air. Not a roar, but relief. The second dragon shifted closer, dragging its own chains. Its wings scraped against stone, leaving a trail of blood. Ethan turned quickly to it. His torch flared again. Sparks danced around him as he cut. His arms ached, his breath burned, but he did not stop. And then he froze. Voices, distant but growing. Louder, carried through the smoke, laughter. The kind that belonged to killers who enjoyed the hunt, mercenaries. Ethan's blood went cold. They were close, maybe minutes away. The dragons tensed. Their glowing eyes turned toward the sound. They tried to lift themselves, but their bodies were still weak. Ethan's mind raced. If he left now, he could escape before they arrived. Could leave the creatures chained and save his own life. But then the second chain broke with a shattering clang. The dragon let out a trembling roar, weak but filled with fire. Ethan looked into its eyes. And in that moment he saw no monster. He saw a wounded warrior, proud but broken. The voices were closer now. Shadows moved against the firelit smoke. The mercenaries would see him soon. His heart pounded. His body screamed at him to run, but he stayed, his feet planted in the dirt, his wrench in hand, his choice already made. "You're not dying here," Ethan whispered. "Not while I'm alive." The dragons moved, shifting their massive bodies closer to him, their wings folded weakly around him like shields. For the first time in his life, Ethan felt something strange like trust flowing between him and beasts of fire. The footsteps grew louder. Shapes appeared in the mist-armed figures with cruel eyes and sharper blades. The mercenaries stopped when they saw the sight before them, a lone human standing beside two wounded alien dragons. The leader laughed, the sound cold as steel. "What do we have here? A hero or a fool?" Ethan raised his wrench. His hands trembled, but his eyes were steady. He had already chosen. He would not leave them. Not now, not ever. The dragons, weak but alive, rumbled beside him. Their golden eyes burned brighter, for the first time since the broken skies had fallen, the battlefield belonged not to war or death, but to an unspoken bond forged between man and beast. And as the mercenaries stepped closer, weapons drawn, Ethan whispered one last time, "If you want them, you'll have to go through me." Hunters in the dark, the smoke shifted, and from the shadows, figures appeared. Their boots crushed the broken stone. Their laughter echoed across the ruins. They carried long rifles, jagged blades, and cruel eyes that searched for prey. Mercenaries, scavengers of war, killers who hunted the weak. Ethan stood frozen, his wrench gripped so tightly that his knuckles turned white. Behind him, the two dragons stirred, their massive bodies trembling as they tried to rise, but their strength had not yet returned. They were still too weak to fight. The mercenary leader stepped forward. His armor was patched from stolen pieces. A cruel smile twisted on his scarred face. "Look at this," he sneered. "A human petting monsters." His men laughed. The sound harsh and hollow. Ethan did not move. He could feel the hot breath of the dragons at his back. He knew they could not defend themselves. Not yet. The mercenaries raised their weapons, but they did not fire. They wanted to play with him first, like wolves circling a wounded deer. "You're a fool," the leader said, spitting into the dust. "These beasts would eat you alive if they had the strength. You wasted your chance to run, and now you'll die with them." Ethan's heart hammered in his chest. His body screamed at him to flee, but he stayed rooted. His voice came out low but steady. "If they wanted me dead, I'd already be bones. They're not monsters, they're survivors, just like me." The mercenaries laughed again. Mocking him, one raised his rifle, pointing it at the dragon closest to Ethan. The weak creature let out a growl, low and painful. Ethan's pulse thundered in his ears. He had nothing but a wrench, no armor, no power. Yet he stepped between the barrel of the gun and the dragon's head. The leader's grin widened. "Brave little human," he said, "but bravery doesn't stop bullets." Before the rifle could fire, the second dragon stirred. Its glowing eyes snapped open, and a sound rumbled from its chest. It was not a full roar. Its body was too weak, but the sound was sharp, primal, and filled with fury. The ground trembled. The mercenaries stumbled back, fear flickering in their eyes. The leader snarled, "Shoot it!" But the dragon, even in its broken state, spread its wings. Chains clattered as they dragged across the stone. Sparks flew where steel scraped rock. The sight was enough to freeze the mercenaries in place. They had come expecting easy prey, not the burning gaze of legends. Ethan felt the air vibrate around him. The dragon's roar was weak, but it carried something greater than power. It carried promise, the will to fight, the refusal to die. The mercenaries cursed, pulling their weapons higher. Ethan's chest tightened. His mind raced. He could not let them fire, not while the dragon still bled. His hands moved before his fear could stop him. He hurled a chunk of stone toward the nearest mercenary. It struck the man's helmet with a loud crack. Spread out. The leader barked. His men fanned into the ruins, circling Ethan and the dragons. Shadows danced in the firelight, every step echoing in Ethan's chest like a drum of doom. Ethan backed closer to the dragons. His voice whispered without thinking, "Stay with me. Just a little longer. Fight if you can, but don't give up." He was speaking to beasts, yet somehow he felt they understood. One mercenary lunged forward, blade flashing. Ethan swung his wrench. Steel rang against steel. Pain shot up his arm, but he did not drop it. Another came from the side. Ethan ducked, the blade slicing air above his head. He stumbled, nearly falling into the dirt, but the dragon's wings shifted, shielding him. The mercenary's strike hit scale instead of flesh, and the sound of breaking steel filled the air. The mercenaries cursed, fear growing in their eyes. Even weakened, the dragons were dangerous. Their sheer presence was enough to break courage. The leader raised his rifle. fury on his face. Enough games, kill them all. The night erupted with fire. Bullets sparked against scales, stones shattered around them. Ethan dropped to the ground, covering his head. But through the chaos, something else rose, another roar. Louder, stronger. The first dragon, the one Ethan had freed, forced itself onto its legs. Its body shook, blood dripping from its wounds, but it stood, towering above the mercenaries. Its glowing eyes locked onto them with burning fury. Flames licked the edges of its teeth. The mercenaries froze. For the first time, they realized their mistake. They had cornered not prey, but predators who refused to die. Ethan scrambled to his feet, his wrench heavy in his hand. He looked at the mercenaries and shouted, his voice breaking but fierce, "You'll never take them. Not while I breathe." The dragons stepped forward, their shadows stretching long across the broken ground. The mercenaries, shaken and pale, began to retreat, their weapons lowered, their laughter gone. They backed into the mist, vanishing into the smoke, promising with their eyes that they would return. Silence fell again. Ethan stood panting, his chest burning. The dragons lowered themselves beside him, curling their wings weakly around his body. It was not an act of hunger, it was protection. For the first time, Ethan understood. This was not just survival anymore. This was something greater, a bond written in fire and blood. The broken skies above held their silence. But the night carried a new truth. One human had chosen to stand with dragons, and the galaxy would never be the same. Asterisk healing and trust. The ruins grew quiet again. The mercenaries had vanished into the smoke, leaving behind only their threats. Ethan's chest heaved as he leaned on his wrench. His body ached, his breath burned. Yet he did not fall. Behind him, the dragons lowered themselves onto the cracked earth, their massive bodies trembling. Ethan turned to face them, his eyes studied their wounds, deep cuts running along their wings, blood staining the dirt beneath them. Chains still clung to their scales like scars of cruelty. He swallowed hard. His heart told him to help, but his hands hesitated. These were dragons, legends of fire and destruction, yet in this moment, they looked no different from wounded soldiers left behind. He knelt beside the first dragon. Its golden eyes watched him, bright even through pain. Slowly, carefully, Ethan opened his pack, pulling out scraps of cloth, bits of medicine, and a flask of water. He poured water onto the cloth and pressed it against the wound. The dragon flinched, a low growl rumbling from its throat. Ethan froze, his voice soft. "Easy, I'm here to help. I'm not your enemy." The growl faded. The dragon's chest rose and fell. Then it stilled, allowing him to continue. Ethan cleaned the blood and wrapped the wound with cloth torn from his own shirt. His hands moved steady, though his heart raced with every touch. The second dragon shifted closer, dragging its wing across the dirt. Its eye locked on Ethan, glowing. Faintly, Ethan understood the look. It was asking without words, "Will you help me too?" He moved to the second, his voice low, "One at a time." "I've got you." He cleaned its wound, his fingers brushing against hot scales. The dragon let out a deep sigh, a sound that shook the ground yet carried peace. For the first time, Ethan realized they were not only strong, they were also tired of war, tired of pain. When the work was done, Ethan collapsed against a broken wall. His arms were weak, his body heavy. The dragons shifted closer, curling around him like walls of living fire. Their warmth pushed away the cold of the night. Ethan tilted his head back, staring at the broken skies above. He whispered, "Why am I doing this?" But he already knew the answer. Hours passed. Night turned to dawn. The pale light of a new day fell across the ruins. The smoke had thinned, but danger still lingered. Ethan knew mercenaries would return, but for now, there was peace. The dragons stirred, lifting their heads. They looked at Ethan with eyes no longer filled with mistrust. Something had changed in the silence of the night. Ethan felt it in his bones, an unspoken bond. And then it happened. A voice, faint and strange, whispered in his mind, It was not his own thought, it was something else. Alien yet gentle. Zera. The word formed clear. Ethan's eyes widened. He looked at the first dragon. Its golden gaze never left him. The name echoed again. Zera. He whispered it aloud. Zera. The dragon lowered its head slowly, as if in agreement. Another voice followed. Deeper, steady. Kale. It came from the second dragon. Ethan's lips parted. He whispered, Kale. The dragon's chest rumbled with approval. Ethan's heart raced. They were speaking to him not with words, but with thoughts, with something deeper. He had heard of alien telepathy, but never imagined feeling it himself. He whispered again, Zera, Kale. Their names felt heavy and powerful, like old secrets carried by the stars. The dragons shifted closer, curling their wings around him again. Their massive heads rested near his small human body. Ethan laughed softly, tired but alive. Guess I'm part of your pack now. For a moment, he forgot the war. He forgot the mercenaries. He forgot the galaxy outside. It was only him and them, two wounded legends, and one human who refused to abandon them. But deep inside, he knew this bond was not just survival. It was the start of something bigger. If dragons could trust a human, if a human could stand with them, then the world would change. The galaxy would learn a new story, one written not in fire alone, but in trust. Ethan's eyes grew heavy. His body begged for rest. As he drifted into sleep, the dragons kept watch, their glowing eyes scanning the ruins. Their wings spread like shields around him. In their ancient culture, such an act carried meaning. He was no longer stranger, he was family. And as the first true light of dawn touched the broken skies, Ethan, Zera, and Kale lay together, bound not by blood, but by a promise unspoken. The galaxy did not yet know it, but in the ruins of war, a human father of dragons was being born. Asterisk. Return of the mercenaries. The morning light was calm, but calm never lasted long in a world torn by war. Ethan awoke to the sound of shifting wings. Zera and Kale stood watch above him, their golden eyes scanning the horizon. For a brief moment, he felt safe, like a child under the protection of giants. But safety is a fragile dream. The ground trembled. Dust shook from the broken walls. A sound of engines, many engines, roared through the silence. Ethan's heart sank. He scrambled to his feet and peered through the cracks of the ruins. In the distance, vehicles rolled forward, armored crawlers and troop carriers painted in black steel. The mercenaries had returned. And this time, they brought an army. Zera's wings shifted. Kale's chest rumbled with fire. The dragons were still weak, their wounds not fully healed, but their eyes burned with fury. They remembered the hunters who mocked them. They remembered the pain. Ethan felt it too. The bond between them carried their anger like fire in his blood. The mercenary leader stood tall on one of the crawlers, his scarred face twisted into a smile. His voice boomed across the ruins through a loudspeaker. Human, you should have run when you had the chance. Now you'll die with your pets. Ethan gripped his wrench. His body trembled, his mind raced. He knew he was no soldier, no warrior. But he also knew he could not abandon Zera and Kale. Not now, not ever, he whispered. If you want them, you'll have to take me first. The mercenaries spread out, weapons drawn, rifles glowing with charged energy. They fired into the ruins, stone exploding around Ethan. Sparks lit the air. The dragons roared, their voices shaking the sky. Zera tried to rise into the air, but her wings faltered. She landed hard, still too weak to fly. Cal bared his teeth, flames leaking from his jaws. Ethan's mind spun. He could not match guns with steel, but he could use something else, his brain. Quickly, he darted through the ruins, pulling wires, setting traps with the scraps he had gathered. He remembered every trick of the battlefield, every trick of survival. He set up explosives made from fuel cells, tripwires hidden under broken stone. Come on, he whispered. Step into the fire. The mercenaries stormed forward, laughing, but their laughter broke into screams as explosions tore through their ranks. Shards of steel flew through the smoke. Ethan's traps turned the ruins into a maze of death. But there were too many. For every one that fell, two more came. Their rifles lit the air with fire. One blast struck Kale's side. The dragon roared. In pain, blood spilling onto the stone, Ethan's heart stopped. He raced to Kale's side. "Hold on. Don't you dare give up." Zahra's eyes blazed with a thunderous cry. She launched herself forward. Her chains dragged like shadows, but her claws tore through soldiers. Fire erupted from her jaws, burning the ground in front of the mercenaries. Their courage broke. Some ran, but the leader stood firm. He raised a massive cannon, a weapon stolen from alien warships. He aimed it at Zahra. Ethan's blood turned cold. He knew one blast could end her life. His body moved before his mind. He sprinted across the rubble, hurling his wrench at the weapon. The strike knocked it sideways just as it fired. The blast hit a crawler instead, tearing it apart in flames. The leader roared in fury, grabbing Ethan by the throat. His grip was like iron. Ethan gasped for air. His feet kicked against the ground. "You think you can stand with monsters?" The leader growled. "You're nothing, just a weak human." But before the final strike could fall, a shadow loomed. Zahra's massive head rose behind the leader. Her jaws opened, fire glowing deep in her throat. The leader's eyes widened. He dropped Ethan and tried to flee. But it was too late. Flames engulfed him, his scream lost in the roar. Ethan collapsed to the ground, coughing. Kale crawled forward, blood dripping but alive. Zahra lowered her head beside Ethan. Her golden eyes glowed not with fury now, but with pride. She had chosen. She had burned for him. The mercenaries broke. Their army scattered into the smoke. Their machines abandoned. Their courage crushed. The ruins fell silent once again. Ethan pressed a hand against Kale's wound. His voice soft but steady. "Stay with me. You're not leaving me, not now." Kale's chest rumbled weakly. But his eyes met Ethan's. Fire still flickered there. Fire that refused to die. The battle was over. But Ethan knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy would not ignore a human standing with dragons. The mercenaries would return, stronger. Others would come, drawn by fear and greed. But Ethan was no longer alone. Zahra and Kale were no longer beasts. They were family, and together they would face whatever came. Above them, the broken skies cleared slightly, letting a single ray of light fall across man and dragon. In that moment, a legend grew stronger. The legend of the human father of dragons. Asterisk, a family forged in fire. The ruins smoldered long after the mercenaries fled. Black smoke curled into the broken skies. Ethan sat on the ground, his body aching, his breath shallow. He pressed his hand against Kale's wound, his fingers shaking. "Stay with me. Don't you dare leave me now," he whispered. Kale's chest rose and fell slowly. Blood stained the stones beneath him, but his golden eyes still glowed. Faint but alive, Zahra stood close. Her wings spread around both of them like walls of fire. She had burned mercenaries to ash, yet now she lowered her massive head to nudge Ethan gently. Her touch was careful, almost human. Ethan leaned against her scales. His voice was rough. "You protected me, both of you. You didn't have to, but you did." Through the bond, whispers echoed in his mind, not words but feelings. Trust, strength, and something deeper. For the first time, Ethan felt not like an outsider, but like he belonged. Hours passed. Ethan worked tirelessly, patching Kale's wound with strips of cloth, sealing it with healing gel he had stolen from the battlefield. His hands shook, his arms burned, but he refused to stop. Kale watched him with steady eyes. No growl, no mistrust, only patience. It was as if the dragon understood that the small human was fighting for his life. At last, Kale's breathing eased. The bleeding slowed. His body sagged into the dirt. Exhausted but safe, Ethan let out a long breath. He fell back against the rubble, his whole body trembling with relief. Zahra lowered herself beside him, curling her long body around him. Kale shifted weakly, dragging himself closer together. The dragons formed a circle, and Ethan was inside it. At first he thought it was chance, but then he realized it was deliberate. They were protecting him, not because they needed him, but because they wanted him. Ethan closed his eyes, feeling their warmth. It was strange. He had always lived on the edge, unwanted, unseen. But here, between monsters feared by the galaxy, he felt safer than ever before. Night fell again. Stars broke through the smoke above. Ethan sat awake, staring at the endless sky. His mind whispered questions he never thought he would ask. What did it mean to be family to dragons? What would the galaxy do if they saw him with them? His thoughts were interrupted by a deep rumble in his mind, clearer this time. Not alone. The voice was heavy, resonant. It was Kale, weak but speaking. Ethan froze. His heart skipped. He whispered back, "No, you're not alone." Another voice followed, softer, strong like flowing fire. "Father." The word echoed inside him. Ethan's breath caught. He turned to Zara, her golden eyes fixed on him. The bond between them pulsed. She had spoken it. She had named him. "Father," Ethan repeated aloud, his voice trembling. He laughed softly, half in disbelief, half in wonder. "You're calling me father." The dragons lowered their heads in unison. Their wings curved closer. The meaning was clear. In their culture, to call someone father was not weakness. It was loyalty. It was belonging. They had chosen him not just as savior, but as kin. Ethan's throat tightened. His eyes burned. He had lost everything once. His people, his unit, his home. But now in the ashes of war, he had found something new. Something greater. Zara's massive head rested near his lap. Kale's golden. I blinked slowly. Ethan placed a trembling hand on each of them. His voice was steady now. "Then I'm yours, always. I'll stand with you until my last breath." The bond surged through him, fire, strength, warmth. It was more than trust. It was family, forged not by blood but by fire and battle. The night grew quiet. The ruins no longer felt empty. They felt alive. Ethan leaned back, his body exhausted, but his heart stronger than ever. He whispered to the stars, "Let the galaxy come. We're ready now." Above them, the broken skies began to clear, revealing streaks of light like burning rivers across the heavens. Ethan, Zara, and Kale lay together under it, a human and two dragons bound as one. And in that moment, a new truth was carved into the universe. The human was no longer just Ethan. He was father of dragons, forged in fire. Father of dragons. The world beyond the ruins did not stay silent for long. Word traveled faster than light. Mercenaries who had survived carried whispers into every dark corner of the galaxy. Whispers of a human who stood beside dragons. Whispers of beasts who now bowed their heads to him. Ethan did not seek fame. He only wanted Zara and Kale to live. He only wanted to keep them safe. Yet destiny had other plans. He walked across the wastelands, the dragons at his side. Zara's wings cast shadows that stretched like storm clouds. Kale's growl echoed through valleys. Everywhere they went, the ground seemed to tremble. To soldiers and scavengers, it looked as if the human was leading them, commanding legends that once burned armies. And so the title began to spread, whispered first in fear, then in awe. The Father of Dragons. At trading posts, frightened voices spoke of him. One human walks with two monsters, and they call him kin. On warships, commanders warned their men, "Do not cross the one who holds the loyalty of dragons." And in royal halls of alien empires, leaders wondered, how could fragile man achieve what entire fleets could not? Ethan heard none of this. He was busy building. In the ruins, he and the dragons worked together. He shaped shelters from broken steel. Zara cleared rubble with her claws. Kale lit fires that warmed the nights. What was once a battlefield began to look like a home. At night, Ethan spoke to them, not as beasts, but as family. "We've all lost something," he said quietly, "but maybe together we can make something new." The dragons listened, their golden eyes glowing in the dark. Their hearts beat with his, their bond deeper with every breath. One evening, as the stars burned bright above, strangers arrived. They were not mercenaries but refugees, survivors from villages destroyed in the wars. They saw the dragons first, and almost fled, fear in their eyes. But then they saw Ethan standing between them, calm, steady, his hand resting gently on Zera's scales. The people whispered, "He is not eaten, he is not burned." They protect him. Slowly, they stepped closer. For the first time, humans and aliens alike sat in the glow of dragon fire. Safe instead of afraid. That night, Ethan understood. His bond with Zera and Kale was not just for survival. It was a symbol. A message carved in fire. Trust was possible where none thought it could exist. But beyond the stars, powerful eyes watched. Commanders of alien fleets, lords of empires, even warlords of the void. They all wondered if the human and his dragons would become a threat. Some wanted to destroy him before his legend grew. Others wanted to capture him, to break the bond and control the dragons for themselves. Ethan knew the danger. He felt it. In every shadow, he looked at Zera and Kale, their wings folded beside him, their eyes burning with loyalty, and he whispered, "Whatever comes, we face it together." The dragons lowered their heads, their massive wings wrapping around him. Like shields, through the bond he heard the word again, heavy and eternal, "Father." And so the legend became truth. Not just whispered fear, not just campfire story, but living fire walking across the stars. A human, fragile yet unbroken, had gained the loyalty of creatures greater than armies. A man who had nothing was now father to dragons. The galaxy would tremble, some in fear, some in awe, but Ethan did not care for glory. He cared only for the family he had forged in battle and blood. As dawn broke across the broken skies once more, Ethan stood at the edge of the ruins, the dragons at his side, their shadows stretched across the land like a promise. And in that moment, the universe learned a new truth. One human heart, strong enough to choose mercy, could command the loyalty of fire. The father of dragons had risen.